Good evening and welcome to Early Late Nights, the Explosion Network's esports news show right here on twitch.tv/Explosion Network every Tuesday and Friday night at 6:30 PM Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you very much for coming tonight and stopping by, and welcome to the show. It's been an interesting week. It's been a long week, but the weekend is here and we're here to talk about a whole bunch of esports, all the news, all the goss, all the good stuff. That's what we're here to do, and I'm glad you're here to join me. It's been a fun week. It's been a very interesting week. I tried out Artifact a couple days ago for the first time. I spoke about it on Tuesday's show. I spent $27. Probably the most complicated card game I've ever seen or played. And I talked about this on Tuesday's episode. So if you want to hear more about the card game itself, go back and watch that little segment. But what you do, it's interesting how much I like everything else except the card game itself. The card game itself is complex. It often ends up with, it feels like the 3 lanes are pointless because you end up ignoring one lane anyway because you can only play certain cards in certain lanes, and you can't play cards in every lane. So the 3 lanes seem kind of pointless, but I really like the marketplace surrounding the whole economy of the game. That nothing's too expensive. There's a couple hero cards that are, getting up to that $20 mark that isn't the greatest, but I guess it's because of those hero cards being so strong at the moment, mainly Axe, with a lot of the majority of the cards appearing at that, 50 cents to $2 mark if you want to buy in for heroes, and of course the items and the extra equipment that you can buy for it, for your decks and deck building. So Artifact's fun, it's interesting. The $27 does get you a decent range of things. You get 2 entry-level decks, you get 10 booster packs. In the current set, Call to Arms, there's 280 cards. So there's a good array of, prize cards to grab and to build up your starter set already. It's a good chance, if you're going to play the game, get in now and start building up that card. Now you get 5 tickets as well to enter yourself into a range of different tournaments like drafts, as well as limited formats, which is really good and really interesting to see. So yeah, I had a good time. I'll be jumping into Artifact more and more in the next couple of weeks, hopefully bringing more to stream right here on twitch.tv/Explosion Network. But it's an interesting game. And then, here in Australia, we've had some great esports moments this year. Some fantastic ones with the Melbourne Esports Open, with IEM, with the growth of the actual scene itself, with Overwatch contenders. But we've also had some really lowlights, and one of those lowlights was earlier this year in the AFL of all places, having a camera moment with the Essendon Esports team, and then the commentators almost mocking that team, not taking that team very seriously. It was it almost felt like high school in that moment with Brian Taylor, much like the sporty kid at school making fun of the geek or the nerd, which was a bit stereotypical, a bit cringy in that moment. It's now been found out, and the funniest thing is I found this out on the AFL website, that Essendon has cut their esports team and completely dropped them. The esports team had moved all the way, I believe, from like Denmark or Finland to be here and play here in League of Legends, but they finished 4th in the team, 4th up in the league, 8th in the league overall, dropping them out. So Essendon currently don't have an esports roster, and it was really interesting to see. Well, first, AFL teams getting involved with esports was weird in general as it was, but on top of that, we had 2 different Ross teams come involved with it, with Adelaide Crows buying out Legacy Esports, and then bringing on this roster was Essendon. And now to see after one failed season Essendon drop the roster, it'll be interesting to see if they gain a new roster or what they do for the team. As a whole, it's a really interesting thought. And, we have so many organizations in esports that come together and consistently, every time that they have a failed season, they'll instantly drop their roster, either disappear for a season from that game, or they'll pick up a new roster straight away of either, a unsigned team, or they'll pull together players on their own. It's a very strange industry sometimes. So to see Essendon treat that the same way, so currently Adelaide Crows are the only team that has an active esports roster. Essendon is from the article I read, is still looking for the next step. But hey, we'll see how that goes in the development of esports from the eyes of the AFL, from the eyes of the AFL clubs, and hopefully that continues to grow. Always also remember that once again, Dota 2 has its Melbourne tournament next weekend, 8th and 9th of November. The Australian Melbourne Pro League for Dota 2, featuring international teams such as Team OG, as well as Mineski, as well as some talent like Gods from Beyond the Summit. So Action Slacks will be a host at the event. It's going to be a pretty big event at the Melbourne Exhibition Centre, so make sure you grab tickets and go on down and support local esports or Australian esports, because it really does need it, and it's really good to get that support so we can get more teams coming in. As well as, if you haven't seen IEM, if you're looking to go to IEM, I think there's only like 10% of premium tickets left if you want to grab a premium ticket for the event, so make sure you go and grab yourself one of those if you are, before they run out, because hey, we don't want to miss out. On tonight's show, we will be discussing all things to do with League of Legends. We'll be going over some of the latest patch notes, or rumored patch changes. Well, by rumored, it's pretty much confirmed by a few. We'll also be talking about its latest deal with a particular comic book company, as well as the up-and-coming All-Star Weekend, and then going over all the latest Blizzard news. Blizzard is revamping the Hearthstone esports scene. There's been a couple changes in Overwatch. I had my heart broken by an Overwatch League team earlier this week. If you followed me on Twitter, you might have an idea of what that is. I'll explain that and go over the situation there, as well as finishing up with the loot box inquiry that Australia's Senate went through. Has finished up, and the results are now out from it, with their findings and their recommendations. We're going to be breaking down the recommendations, breaking down some of the comments that were made at the Senate, and then giving you my 2 cents, because, you know, my 2 cents is worth quite a bit. It's worth probably 4 cents. You know, it's a good perk of being me. I can give myself my own economy on the channel. You know, what's my 2 cents is worth the most here on this show, because there's nobody else on the show, I guess. Yeah, fair call. But let's get right into it, shall we, with League of Legends. The very start. And most people attribute, the modern day esports to League of Legends. So it's really interesting. And so we spoke last episode about patches and buffs and nerfs with Dota 2, going through that recent massive 7.20 change. League is now working on their follow-up patch in the coming season, patch 8.24. It's interesting if you compare it. Dota 2 has been around, or Dota in some form has been around for longer, but because League of Legends in its current iteration has been out longer, more patches. And League patches more often compared to Dota 2. Dota 2's big patches happen like once a year, or sometimes even longer. So yeah, it's the differences between the major MOBAs is quite interesting at all times. But in a recent interview with the design director Andre Van Roon, also known as the meddler in some circles, the meta meddler, what a name, meta meddler, has come forward and said there's going to be changes to about 6 or 7 characters, and the main character we're going to highlight in this change is going to be Victor. Victor at the moment is a top laning menace. He gives a lot of other top laners a real hard fight, a real hard time. He's an instant ban at the moment. I think it's not even like the overall character. I think it's just his playstyle at the moment, along with the use of his Q and E abilities, is quite overpowered. So of course, Riot's going to be looking at Victor. They're going to be increasing the cooldown of his Q, maybe, altering the ratio of its potential versus how often it can be used. I think we're going to see that even out, so that Victor isn't an instant ban. We'll see Victor actually come in play, because it's interesting. A lot of times with buffs, we think of people bringing people into the meta. In games where they have bans, in nerfs, it's almost like you're bringing that character, down, and almost making it harder, because it's interesting for team captains if somebody's always going to ban out Victor. Somebody's always banning out Victor, and that's a psychological plan, is that you have to know that there's going to be a ban here. Somebody's going to get banned, and we need to make sure that that is happening consistently. And so once that Victor change will be going in, what's the new ban? What's the new main thing? And that's how the meta evolves with bans and picks. And that's why I want bans so badly in Overwatch. But It's interesting to see Victor getting changed. There's also other changes going to be including Aurelia, Jax, Akali, and LeBlanc, including a couple others. I think for me, the main one I see a lot in League of Legends games, and the couple I've played recently, is LeBlanc. LeBlanc has always been a high skill cap character, but the amount of damage that she does is quite insane, including in like the early to mid-range levels. Her mid laning is amazing if you can put it in the hands of a player that knows what to do with her. So it'll be interesting to see what changes come out from her. And overall, I think League has needed these changes for a little bit now, so it's really good to see them dive into it and really get into it. League as a game, as an event, as a pop culture icon, it's really interesting, especially with all of these games, the lore that develops around them in stories, in the lore writings for each game, in comic books, in little cartoons, in animated shorts. League of Legends has teamed up with Marvel to release an up-and-coming Ashe comic called Ashe War Mother Edition. League of Legends Ashe War Mother Edition, which is going to be released on the 5th of December, which is fully brought to you by Marvel. It's going to be a fantastic story. To have that caliber of writer and that caliber of producer being brought to, you know, to the scene is fantastic. To see them actually working with somebody of note. Sometimes, you know, Dark Horse does a lot, and Dark Horse has a fairly good reputation, but Marvel and DC now coming into it a lot more is really interesting. I'm tempted to, and I'm excited to hear that there's more comic books to come from the partnership, so that'll be really good for League fans, as well as I'm hoping, because League of Legends, because of licensing and everything, they get away with making skins that are inspired by characters. One of my favorite original League of Legends skins was, there was a skin for, I can't remember, Singed. There was a skin for Singed that was pretty much Bane from Batman. And I love that because it came right around the time of Dark Knight Rises, if I remember, but it was like comic book Batman, the animated series style Bane. That was really cool. I really liked it, but they couldn't call it Bane, even though we all knew it was Bane. So let's hope that potentially we can get some Marvel themed skins coming through in League of Legends, you know, get some of those tasty skins. I'm excited. I'm excited to see about it, you know, with more of it coming through, we'll have more details and more features for it. So I'm excited. Maybe we'll get, you know, that Incredible Hulk Mundo, or the Scarlet Misfortune, being the Scarlet, you know, the why did I call it Scarlet Misfortune? It's Black Widow Misfortune. Scarlet Witch, it would not be Misfortune, everyone. You know, I had a brain fade just then. But to see these heavily inspired and working, like skins working with the Marvel writers and illustrators would be really freaking cool. And finally, for League of Legends, one of the calendar moments, one of the key calendar moments for the entire year is the All-Star event. The All-Star event is always such a must-see event, with a whole range of players coming together from all around the world to compete in different game modes and game types. And it's a lot of show matches put together, partly to show you who the best in the world is and let players, you know, like Faker, like Uzi, prove themselves on a world stage. But to see the players come together and play in different formats and different team combinations is absolutely fantastic. And with League of Legends, it was really good to see that other esports like Overwatch League learned from this and also had a very similar All-Star weekend with a range of players being involved. My personal favorite is, out of all the events, my personal favorite is always the 1v1s. I think 1v1s in MOBAs are super fun and super interesting, with players actually coming together and showing the finesse that is involved in mid laning and shaking it up with character picks and how they work in the mid lane, where you're not relying on ganks from your team. You the only thing you can rely on is your own skill and strategy. So it's fantastic to watch, and I'm always really happy. I'm excited to see that if Uzi can pull another solid year out, or pull another event out. It's going to be great. It's going to be really fun. There's also 2v2 charity events. There is team events. From the Oceanic region, we have Triple and Pabu. Triple, of course, from Direwolves, and Pabu from Avant Gaming, representing the region in the All-Star event. So let's get behind those two boys and really put on a good showing and show what OCE League of Legends really is about, because I'm really exciting. So the event happens from the 7th till the 9th of December. It's a whole lot of fun. Like, it's a whole lot of fun to watch. And I think League of Legends does this so well. They really, you know, do these events really well to show and highlight the skill of individual players, bring them together, and to thank the fans for supporting them and show these dream matchups that they've always been wanting to see, that they might not always get a chance to see. So it's always a good event. It's always a fun event. That's covered all of our League of Legends news for today. If you've got any more League news, make sure you tweet it at me, at your boy Ringo on Twitter, or anything you want to hear about League of Legends in the future. Or do you want me to stream it, or what do you want? Do you want Dylan? Do you want me to bring Dylan Blight on? Talk about MOBAs, talk about his experience in MOBAs, because I think it's quite interesting. For him, it's probably a terrible look back experience. But League of Legends it's an interesting time in his life. MOBAs were an interesting time in my life. So maybe we'll sit down and have a chat about it one day. I'll be pretty excited. Let's move on to them boys at Blizzard. Them boys at Blizzard are throwing down a crazy schedule of events for all of their games they put out, and it's really good. No matter what they're doing, if they're trying to ruin Diablo in some way, or putting on great events with Overwatch, or bringing out new expansions for Hearthstone, with its latest expansion coming out, Rakushan's, I'm not even going to attempt it, it's Rakushan's Rumble? Nah, I got it wrong, but it's fine. Coming out recently, it has brought a new wave of cards to the Hearthstone event and preparing players for the up-and-coming 2019 season of Hearthstone. But in a blog update, it has been announced that Hearthstone and the Hearthstone team are completely overhauling the event setup for Hearthstone. The HCT is no longer a thing. The Hearthstone Championship Tour is no longer a thing. Not going to be a part of the esports scene anymore. It's now going to be separated into a 3-tier system, which includes a set of qualifiers, a set of live online tournaments, and also a top-tier invite-only exclusive events. And it's really interesting looking at this. So the qualifiers is an open qualifier, so anybody can join in the qualifiers and fight their way through. The winners of each region's qualifiers can get an invite to the live online tournaments, and then the winners of the live online tournaments will get invites with the top tier players from around the world to enter the top tier events. Overall, Hearthstone, the team has announced there's going to be about $14 million worth of, no, not 14, $4 million. I pumped that up. $4 million worth of prizes are going to be rolled out throughout the year with different events, with 4 main tournaments being of like $250,000 as a prize pool. Or I'm really excited. It looks really good. It's interesting to see the learning curve that Hearthstone has taken from Overwatch Contenders. Overwatch Contenders has its Path to Pro system when you play through Open Division to Contenders Trials to Contenders to potentially the Overwatch League. So to see that happening and to see that evolve and change now coming forward is really, really interesting and really, really fun to see and watch. To see them learn from another game within their own family is really good. Sometimes it's really hard for esports players and esports fans to understand the journey or understand what to do if they wish to try and make it in the competitive scene. So to have these games giving players a clear path to play through to potentially get a spot in the upper tiers of the competitive play is really, really good to see and really, really exciting for everybody involved. So good job to the Hearthstone team. We'll be seeing more events and more news coming from them in the coming year, and then more changes and more updates coming in 2020 for them as well, which is another exciting thing. Moving on to that little brother, Overwatch. No big Overwatch League news. Well, there is, and I'll talk about that in a second, but Firstly, it has been found on the live servers currently, through some testing done, that currently the DPS character Genji's deflect ability, which is normally used to deflect projectiles and other forms of damage, including some melee hits like Reinhardt's hammer, can now be used to deflect not deflect, but rather nullify the damage from Doomfist's punch. So you still get pushed back, you still hit a wall, but you don't take the initial damage anymore from Doofist's punch. You still get a little stun, but it's interesting to see this change come through, and it's kind of snuck through. I don't think nobody really realized this change was a thing until it was kind of speculated, and then Reddit users from across the world jumped on and started messing with it and playing with it, and now we have this interesting combination of games and this interesting change with this Genji, and it led to fact of, it seems like now Genji is able to deflect pretty much all melee abilities, other than, you know, like charge and stuff, because that's coded differently. But you can deflect Genji blades, you can deflect, you can always deflect Reinhardt hammer, and in class as a melee weapon, you can deflect with Genji's deflect ability, which is a really cool change, and I'm interested to see how pro players shake it up and change the meta. Now, I almost had my heart broken yesterday. Day before. No, it was yesterday. Almost had my heart broken. And I'd said on the earlier episode this week on Tuesday that the Overwatch League free agency period closes up on the 1st of December, and I was waiting for something big to happen. What I was not waiting for was the LA Gladiators to come out on Thursday morning and tweet out that a goodbye tweet to Big Goose and Shaz, the Finnish duo. This broke my heart instantly. Shaz and Big Goose are fantastic together. They play so well together, and they're probably the most consistent and reliable duo like members of the Gladiators. They did so well that Gladiators were just like, yeah, we don't need a support sub. They'll just be good. And so to see that coming through, it broke my heart. I was like, what teams poached them so late in the season? What in the period? You know, what has happened? And then about half an hour later, Gladiators tweet out again to welcome its Finnish trio of Big Goose and Shaz, as well as its newly signed Ripper. I almost had a heart attack. I almost cried. The internet almost cried as well. Like, there was a lot of bad reception to how this was handled. Never fuck with your fan base. Don't do it. You know, this is LA Gladiators, the team that is, you know, the Great Bamboozle was their strat that shook up the Overwatch League world. And then they run and do that, and oh my god, and it's funny, and, you know, it's the great debate now, but I'm really excited for Ripper to be part of the team. He's a fantastic ammo player and flex support, as well as he's just turned 18, so he's eligible to play straight away in the Overwatch League for the coming season. No more changes I've seen as of yet, but, you know, there's still time. There's still some surprises to come out, so we'll see more of that in the coming days. But LA Gladiators, damn you. Damn your social media team. I still love you. I still wear your shirt on my podcast, but you hurt me. You traumatized me. And you're going to receive a bill for my therapy. Speaking of therapy, let's move on. As you probably noticed from, it was almost 6 months ago now, that I had spoke about the Australian Senate doing an inquiry into loot boxes and the gambling of loot boxes for Australia. And loot boxes are a pretty full-on subject at the moment, I guess. There's a lot of people that are talking about loot boxes and how they're gambling in the world. And there's different countries have already come out and applied gambling laws to them. Different countries have said, nah, it's not gambling. But so Australia is taking its turn to research loot boxes. And so the article or the piece of paper, and it's not a piece of paper, it's like a document. The document from that inquiry has now been released to the Senate a couple of days ago with all of its findings, and the end result is nothing too special. The end result is that the Australian Senate advises the federal government to do a full comprehensive review into loot boxes. Pretty much, there's something kind of there, government. You may as well, yeah, you guys should look at it. You guys should look at it. From the further discussion from the loot box event, there was well, from the loot box inquiry, from further discussion, it was found that there was only one piece that really showed a connection or a potential connection between gambling and loot boxes having negative effects on people across Australia, especially children. And it was interesting to read that piece and to come through. But then, as a gamer, the rest of this article gets really frustrating, or the rest of the news on this. Immediately after the announcement was made and the advice was given from the piece, the leading Greens member and the leading member of this inquiry, I have his name written down, Jordan Steele John, came forward to give his view and his displeasure with the result of this inquiry, because not giving a good enough decision based on this. And he would talk about classifications and how games with loot box mechanics but with items that can't be monetized should be marked as MA15, and any games that have loot box mechanics with items that can be monetized should be rated as R18. It's interesting, and I'm not going to be political on this, and my political viewpoint really doesn't come in on this one. But, you know, when it comes to loot boxes, I am very strongly opposed to them being classed as gambling, because I use the age-old statement of gambling. If you're going to call loot boxes gambling, you're going to start calling Kinder Surprise gambling. You're going to start calling Magic the Gathering packs or booster packs for card games. You know, you're going to start calling the local state fair of Lucky Dips gambling, because it's all a gamble. You pay money, you have no idea what you're getting, you don't know the percentage of what you're getting, you just reach your hand in, you open the pack, you bite into the chocolate and choke, and then you spit out and you spit out the toy and you find out what's going on. But it really frustrated me. It frustrated me because then, you know, the actual previous Kotaku editor actually opposed that thinking about booster packs, saying that's disingenuous, that at least with booster packs, you know, you're not getting the feeling of like you're almost always winning, that most of the time with loot boxes you're getting items of poor value or that you have already received duplicates of. And I'm just like, this motherfucker's never played Magic, clearly. The amount of marrow bats I've received in booster packs of, you know, of Magic the Gathering, or shitty rares that you receive in booster packs of Magic the Gathering, is ridiculous. And so what you're saying is, do you want loot boxes to make you feel like crap all the time? Just be like, nah, fuck you. Because Magic the Gathering packs, you've never felt disappointment until you've opened a box and you've not received a decent rare for the entire box of booster packs. That's some bullshit right there. And I have, you know, personal prejudice against booster boxes because I've spent much money on many booster boxes in my time. So to have this come out now of, you know, loot boxes, and the statement is that, you know, the house always wins, and that the house always wins, and you've got a really small percentage chance of winning something valuable. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I don't want to have a really good chance of winning something that I actually, you know, that I actually want. I don't want to be like guaranteed it if I buy this many things. I think that's fucking dumb, because Dota 2 did that. Dota 2 is like the percentage chance always goes up the more you buy. And I don't like that. Fuck that. I want an even chance no matter how many times I buy it. You know, I might buy 300 loot boxes and not get a fucking damn thing of worth. And that's on me. That's on me deciding. And I know many people are like, well, you know, children and cards, and, you know, they might get hold of their mother's credit card or their father's credit card, and they might spend money and buy lots of things and cause problems. Well, as it states further in the inquiry, many Jordan from the Greens mentioned and thanked Australian gaming developers for putting parental controls in their consoles and the games. And it's like, well, it's not really Australian like developers that are putting parental controls in consoles. It's just a native thing in most consoles. In all consoles, there are parental controls now that require the very things that you can lock out the store for your kid. Nah, you're not getting into that store. Nah, be gone. You know, you're not getting into the store. You're not going to be able to do this without a password. You can't talk to other people. You can't play online. There is enough parental controls in like consoles and video games now that we can do things. I understand if you want to stick a warning sticker on, you know, on the the rating, not raise the rating, maybe make it PG for games that have like loot boxes that are below PG, that say contains loot boxes. I think they already do it in some games, you know, contains loot boxes. And that's, you know, I think the Australian community and the gaming community should have the chance to decide and understand things themselves. We don't need nanny states. It frustrates me. So what are you going to say? What happens now, Ciaran? What's going on now with this? So it's going to go to the federal government to continue making a further investigation. They don't have to do this. It's just strongly advised by the Australian Senate that they do it. So they're going to take their time now to go have another review, another long period of time where they investigate. So we're not going to see another result for another 6 months. Not going to see any more results on this. Probably for at least another 6 months. Part of me wants to say like a couple years because we're Australia and anything to do with gaming we're slow on. But to see that coming through it's an interesting thing. And we're always going to have divisive viewpoints. Senate feels bad, man. I know the MASH live. It's just the way it is. And the Australia in general is slow and behind and underprepared, I guess, when it comes to video games and anything related to it. So we'll see the results of that eventually. I'm sure I'll be talking about it more here on Early Late Nights. I would go to end Early Late Nights there, but I have an announcement I just quickly want to make. We're coming to the end of the year. We're coming to award season, and if you listen to tomorrow's Arcade Couch, I get really angry. Get really angry about esports awards in general, because we've had the esports awards. I talked about it a couple episodes ago. They were fucking trash. We have the Australian Gaming Award, Video Game Awards coming out. Esports Awards, fucking trash. I'm so angry about the Esports Awards they have and the nominations for them. Not for all of them. Some of them, they're okay. There's problems. Listen to that Arcade Couch. I bitch a lot about esports in that. Oh. So, what we're going to be doing, coming up on December... I'm looking up because I should have looked at it earlier, and I did, but I didn't write the date down. Tuesday, December 18th is going to be the last episode of Early Late Nights for 2018. We're going to take a couple weeks off and then come back refreshed and renewed and full of vigor for 2019. But what we will be doing, or what I will be doing, is a special 1 hour long episode of the show. We're going to be going over some of the best moments of esports in 2018. We're going to be going over some of the best players. We're going to be talking about a whole range of news, including all the latest news on, you know, all the latest news across the board. But we're going to be doing more lists. We're going to do a couple top 5 moments. We're going to experience some great esports events all over again, and I will get a name. We might do some Early Late Nights awards. Might give some awards out, but keep that in mind. That's going to be an hour-long episode on the 18th of December. We might change the time around, so keep an eye on us on Twitter, on here, in the next week of shows. So keep up with it, keep going. It's going to be a fun show. I'm really excited to do it, to be perfectly honest. So, we came up with the idea of doing awards and stuff like halfway through Arcade Couch when I was really angry. So go listen to that if you want to hear salty Ciaran about Triggered. It's in the first hour. Anyway, announcement aside, this is the end of Early Late Nights for tonight. The end of Early Late Nights, that's bad. This is the end of Early Late Nights. The show is cancelled. Yeah, nah, it's not. That's jebaited. I should jebait thumbnail this, though. Ciaran cancels the show. Let's fucking do it. That's the name. If you listen to this episode because it says Ciaran cancels the show, you got fucking jebaited. This is my counter jebate from LA Gladiators. You just got re-jebaited, meta jebaited, Ringo jebaited, early late jebate. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me for this episode. If you want to hear more from the previous episodes, go check them all out at explosionnetwork.com/early late nights. Also, make sure you follow us on our social medias at ExplosionPod for the Explosion Network Twitter, or my own Twitter is at your boy Ringo for all my rantings and my random heartbreaks and my yelling and esports organizations. If you want to catch the show, make sure you join us every Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time for, the half an hour of goodness. half an hour of esports greatness like you have tonight. Join us in chat, yell at me, talk to me, do all that good stuff. Make sure you follow the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Explosion Network. Give us a follow and turn on the notifications so you know when we go live with all of our good content and shows. But you say to me, Ciaran, I'm not going to be here live every time. That's completely fine. You still can catch up on the show 24 hours later, 7 p.m. Wednesday, 7 p.m. Saturday, where we give you the show on demand on youtube.com/Explosion Network and all good podcasting services if you want to listen to the audio version. If you're like Ciaran, don't like looking at your face, like listening to your voice though. Like listening to your voice while I run. And I'm like, you know, download it. Go for it. So make sure you grab it there. If you are going to, make sure you give us a like, subscribe, a 5-star review. Say, Ciaran, you're a pog. You're a pog champ. And I'd appreciate that. And thank you very much for joining me tonight. Make sure you have a great weekend. Play some games. Get good at those games. And as always, just be a good person. And always say GG. Have a good night.